There are many people on this app and across the internet in your own communities and in your families who've claimed for months now that this entire situation was a hoax, and that's why the release had been held up, because these records simply didn't exist. It was something made up by Democrats. There are also people in those same spaces who will laugh or cheer or even say that Maxwell herself deserves a pardon or deserves to be released because this entire thing was a hoax and she is a scapegoat. I want to read you case number 1:20 CV for civil 0-00484. This is one of the filings that is on the Justice Department's website that was released in the last 24 hours. This is extremely difficult subject matter. If this is triggering to you, please do not watch the rest of the video, but I need you to hear in the true words of this legal filing what was said. And yes, this is the filing that does mention Trump by name. I am not a lawyer. This is for informational purposes. Jane Doe plaintiff versus Darren K. Indike, Richard D. Kahn in their capacities as executors of the estate of Jeffrey E. Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, an individual, are the defendants. This case arises out of years of abuse and exploitation of a young girl by notorious pedophile and convicted offender Jeffrey Epstein. It all started in 1994 when 13-year-old Jane Doe met Epstein and Maxwell at a summer camp in Michigan. Jane Doe was their first known victim and was subsequently abused by Epstein and Maxwell for years as a young girl, suffering unimaginable physical and psychological trauma and distress. Despite that, Jane Doe has persevered and survived to tell her story, to hold her perpetrators accountable, and to seek justice for the atrocities committed against her. Throughout his life, Epstein systematically perpetrated acts of molestation, exploitation, assault on hundreds of young girls. Epstein's system of abuse was facilitated in large part by his co-conspirator and accomplice, Maxwell, who helped supply him with a steady stream of young and vulnerable girls, many of whom were fatherless like Jane Doe and came from struggling families. This system, which took years to develop, all started with them exploiting and abusing Jane Doe, who they used as a guinea pig to refine their criminal enterprise and widen their network of additional abuse victims. Then it lays out the parties, which I will skip over because we know who they are. I'm also going to skip over the jurisdiction and venue and the jury demand and jump into the factual allegations. In the summer of 1994, Jane Doe met Jeffrey Epstein and Maxwell at Interlochen Arts Camp in Michigan when she was only 13 years old. Doe was there as a student in the voice program. Doe was sitting alone on a bench between classes when Epstein and Maxwell approached her. Epstein bragged to her about being a patron of the arts and giving scholarships to talented young artists like Doe. Epstein and Maxwell probed her at length about her background, family situation, and where she lived. As Doe got up to leave, Epstein requested her mother's phone number in Florida. She was alarmed by his request, but also feared she could not refuse the older man's request, so she complied and provided him with the phone number. Several weeks later, once Doe had returned from Michigan to Florida, Epstein called Doe's home. Epstein first spoke with Doe's mother about how he mentors young kids and provides scholarships for the arts. He requested to speak to Doe and invited her and her mother to his mansion in Palm Beach and sent a driver across town to pick them up. Over the course of the next several months, Epstein and Maxwell attempted to groom and mentor 13-year-old Jane Doe. Epstein gave himself the name of Doe's godfather, while Maxwell acted like an older sister to her. They took her to movies, went shopping with her, and lounged around Epstein's estate. Epstein and Maxwell then started to make actual references when they were with her. For instance, Maxwell told Doe that having ex-boyfriends was easy because once you slept with them, they've been grandfathered in and you can go back and F them whenever you wanted. This is her, a grown woman, having a conversation with a 13-year-old girl. Epstein also started to slowly display his PDF ways when shopping with Doe and Maxwell. Instead of Doe picking out clothes she wanted to wear, Epstein insisted that she pick out and wear little children's cotton underwear. Also, after nearly every visit with Epstein and Maxwell, Epstein sent Doe home with 2 or 3 $100 bills to give her mother, since she's having a hard time and struggling as a widow. While these visits made Doe extremely uncomfortable, Epstein and Maxwell made her feel like she could not refuse them. During this time, Epstein started to pay for voice lessons for Doe and insisted that Doe could not advance her career in any way without him. When Doe expressed hesitation about spending time with Epstein and Maxwell or acquiescing to their desires, Epstein and Maxwell would threaten Doe and scold her for being ungrateful. During one of Doe's encounters with Epstein, he took her to Mar-a-Lago, where he introduced her to its owner, Donald J. Trump. Introducing 14-year-old Doe to Donald J. Trump, Epstein elbowed Trump playfully, asking him, referring to Doe, "This is a good one, right?" Trump smiled and nodded in agreement. They both chuckled, and Doe felt uncomfortable, but at the time was too young to understand why. Towards the end of 1994, Epstein invited Doe into his pool house, where he grabbed her, put her on his lap, and started. Epstein told her that was what to expect from photographers who were going to soon be taking modeling pictures of her. However, when Doe was ultimately photographed by these professional photographers, they did no such thing. Over the next few years, the abuse escalated. On a regular basis, Epstein would digitally Doe's forced Doe to perform S acts on him and apply vibrators on different parts of Doe's body. The abuse occurred at Epstein's home in Palm Beach, Florida, Epstein's townhouse on 9 East 71st Street in New York City, and Epstein's ranch in New Mexico. When traveling to these places, Doe often flew with Epstein and Maxwell in Epstein's private jet. In 1996, when Doe was 16 years old, Epstein moved Doe to New York City. At first, Epstein put Doe up in his apartment on 65th Street and 2nd Avenue. After a few months, Epstein co-signed the lease for Doe and Doe's mother for an apartment. Additionally, Epstein paid her tuition at a private high school in Manhattan as well. Once Epstein had secured Doe in New York and made her and her family completely dependent on him financially, including the roof over their heads, Epstein's abuse of Doe continued to escalate. In 1997, while at Epstein's townhouse on 9 East 71st Street in the city of New York, Epstein asked then 17-year-old Doe if she had a boyfriend. Doe replied that she did not. Epstein responded that when she did have a boyfriend, she would want the sex to be good and that she should get it over with already, meaning lose her virginity. Despite Doe's resistance, Epstein then pushed Doe down onto her stomach and raped her. From that point forward, for several years in New York, Epstein raped Doe on multiple occasions. During Doe's time in New York, Maxwell also regularly facilitated Epstein's abuse of Doe and was frequently present when it occurred. In 1999, Doe moved to Los Angeles to start a career. Upon moving to Los Angeles and being physically away from Epstein and Maxwell, Doe finally felt like she could escape Epstein's abuse and stopped returning his frequent calls where he would threaten and berate her for not appreciating him. Despite Doe's physical escape from Epstein and Maxwell, the years of abuse and exploitation perpetrated against her by them caused her immeasurable pain and suffering every day. This filing then goes on to list out very specifically the causes of action in the S assault charges, where she talks about Maxwell's assistance in those violent demands, the specific ways that he would touch her when alone with Epstein or with Epstein and Maxwell, the way they were intimidating to her, and how they used threats, the cause of action around S battery, where we talk specifically about the allegations of penetration with fingers, tongue, and foreign objects, quote unquote, numerous occasions over several years, discussing the harmful and offensive physical contact with Doe's body. It goes into the cause of action around intentional infliction of emotional distress, which talks about Maxwell's campaign of abuse against the teenage plaintiff, which was extreme and outrageous conduct that shocks the conscience. It talks about their methodical plan of recruitment, enticement, and attack, and to inflict severe pain and anguish upon Doe, and that they knew that this would create long-lasting effects on her mental health. It goes into the fourth cause of action about negligent infliction of emotional distress. It talks about how, quote, Epstein and Maxwell coaxed plaintiff, then a teenage girl, into Epstein's home for a period of several years. They worked hard to groom her, and once under their supervision and influence, Epstein and Maxwell proceeded methodically to abuse plaintiff. It talks about their extreme conduct. Then it goes into the fifth cause of action, false imprisonment, in perpetrating those acts of non-consensual assault. That Doe was the use of a physical force, essentially willful or intentional confinement or detainment during those acts. And then it goes into what the prayer for relief is. If you want to read those full details, this document is available in that file dump. I will list the specific information where you can find this file down below. This is just one of many, many Doe cases that are listed on the site under the case records section. Many of them go into much more explicit detail about the acts that were done, specifically Maxwell's acts, that I could not physically read to you here on this platform. For anyone still defending these people or pretending like these people all didn't know each other and know what was going on, shame on you. Your loyalty to an elected political official should never usurp your humanity and your dignity as a human being when we're talking about the assault, imprisonment, and abuse of children.